A and B, common sticks, soft sticks.
My name is Jay Williams. Well, I'll tell you, I actually think falling in love with technology and just this business really goes back to when I was a kid. I grew up in Muncie, Indiana, about as far away from Hollywood as you could actually be, but I just love story. I love television shows, I loved movies. My parents were always taking my sister and I to films, and it was an escape. And for me, it was always like a magic trick, just seeing how they created this. And I didn't know how I would somehow be part of it, but it was something that I knew I just had to be part of. It's something I felt inside. And I was lucky enough, really probably by about 9, I thought my career was actually going to be in radio. And so I really followed that path, and that's really where my career in entertainment started, was as a broadcaster. And it was my junior year in college where I had an opportunity to actually meet the vice president of marketing for Walt Disney World, that created an opportunity for me to do an internship, and that led to a 17-year career with Disney. So it was really the mouse that got me closest to the entertainment. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but ultimately it was that opportunity with Disney out of college from radio that really got me fully, kind of entrenched within entertainment. I was very fortunate, and for me, I've always been very curious by nature, and I think that's why I was always sort of fascinated with technology. And for me, it was really just always being open to those opportunities, regardless of what they were. And so, while I wanted to be in entertainment, there wasn't one specific area. I just knew I wanted to be part of this amazing industry that I grew up with and just daydreamed about so much. And so when I had that chance to start with Disney, I actually started in advertising of all places. But I learned a lot about the financial side of the business from advertising. And at the time, this is back in the early 90s, so this was kind of pre-internet. So it was really being there at the very beginning, sort of still the analog time period, but then starting to transition into that digital period that was very exciting to me, and seeing all this technology development and being part of a company like the Walt Disney Company that really, going back to Walt Disney himself, is always about technology and creative. That just fueled that fire even more for me. Yeah, I think what's really interesting is it's like anything, and we're seeing it right now. It's just technology evolves so fast, and there's always a degree of catching up that has to happen. We're starting to see a lot of tech companies that are now in that entertainment space, and that's an interesting inflection point. But if you go back to like the 90s, for instance, and the start of the internet, they were two very, very different industries. And it was really entertainment trying to play catch up. Like, what is this thing? We're not really familiar with this. It's something that we probably should be involved with. And I think early on, certainly for me as an executive at Disney, we recognized the opportunity to reach a lot of people through the internet. But there were a lot of constraints. Obviously, there was no broadband. It was dial-up. And so it was all text-based. So we had to be really clever about how we did things. I remember actually doing a promotion with Prodigy and CBS to launch their new fall lineup. This is probably around 1994. And it was all text-based. There was no video, but it was a chance to actually win a trip to, I think it was Hollywood at the time, and we gave a trip away to Disney as well. But that was just kind of the early ideas in terms of what we might be able to do with this medium. And we really liked the idea that it was a way to really kind of go directly to consumers. It was a very early version of direct to consumer. But we were very limited because of the bandwidth. And I think, one thing I will say about Hollywood is everyone gets very excited, and we get very excited, and then we start to jump in and we start to realize our ideas oftentimes are a lot bigger than the technology at the time really allows us to implement. So you go through this period of time where you have to sort of bring yourself back a little bit, knowing eventually you'll get there. And so I think there was a lot of that in the early days of the internet and just trying to figure all of that out. The technology was very disruptive at the time because it really went against the norms that we were used to. So with my career at Disney World, so I was in advertising there, working with the national advertising team for about 5 years, and then I transitioned over to more promotions and production, and that was through the year 2000. And then it was 2000 where I actually moved to Southern California in the Disney studios, where I joined the studio as a senior executive and really began working on the motion picture side of things, which that was another really interesting inflection point. Because that was really where we're starting to see more digital content come into play, right? Now we're starting to do images, not just text, but we can do images, and we're starting to do some very small video. But we start hearing about the possibility of mobile now. And what that might mean, because we have phones. We don't have smartphones at this point, but we have phones. So you start to see, okay, so consumers are now going to be carrying around this wonderful marketing device with them. How can we take advantage of that? How can we communicate directly with them with that? And that's really where, from a marketing perspective, I think all of Hollywood was excited about this technology development. Not necessarily really understanding the technology side of it, but really understanding the implications of it as it relates to consumers and how you can reach those consumers. I also would say Hollywood was probably a little guarded because, I think there were probably those, especially the technologists, that sort of see into the future a bit and saw that, suddenly if all these voices are able to come together, we may have to listen to them a lot more now than we did before they were able to get together like that. So there was a degree of sort of those barriers that were being broken by that technology. And I think for some people in Hollywood, that was a scary thought. I think for others, they saw it as an opportunity, again, to talk directly to those consumers. And I think what that has led to, which I think is really wonderful, is fandoms. And the fact that these fans can actually have some input on the things that they love now. And as we all know, with influencers and digital creators, those fans are sometimes your best marketing that you can go to. So, back before that, we had to just rely on paid media and publicity. So being able to, bring these influencers in that now have a voice, that have their own following, I think has really been a big game changer. And again, that all came through this evolution of technology and where we kind of started. And I really think that inflection point in terms of where we are now was really not all that long ago, but really kind of started in, the mid to late 90s and just kind of carried us right into the YouTube launch in 2006. And then it just really exploded at that point. Well, I think it really gets back to that innate human fear of the unknown, right? So, and again, Hollywood has sort of contributed to this too with these amazing sci-fi films that we've had throughout time, and what's going to happen when the machines take over and all of this. And so I think as an industry, we've kind of done ourselves a little bit of a disservice that way, because I think a lot of the fear that the consumers have now are from those movies that were actually created here in Hollywood. But I think that comes natural with human nature. It is that fear of the unknown. It is, am I suddenly going to be obsolete? And I really believe the answer to that is absolutely not. I don't think there's any way to replicate the human spirit or to figure out what's inside each of us as individuals. I think the best AI will never be able to figure that out. That's my personal opinion. But I really do believe that for Hollywood and for a lot of consumers, it is that fear of the unknown. And it is the excitement of the technology industry to get out there and go, look at all this great stuff that we're able to do. And I think in that race to excitement, sometimes a lot of the facts get kind of skipped over. And what happens is we get a lot of the hype. And so a lot of the bad comes out. And we don't get to hear about a lot of the good that comes from that as well. To me, technology is really just a tool set. It's there to help us make better whatever it is, whether it's an artist, whether you're making a car, whether you're a surgeon. It's making you better because the tool set is better. If you go back to cave paintings all the way back, they were eventually, they were doing those cave paintings in the very beginning with their hands and finding, whatever kind of berry juice they could have to paint that. And eventually someone came up with a better way to do the paint. Someone came up with, hey, we could do a paintbrush. And suddenly those cave paintings got better and better over time. It never replaced the artist, by the way, or the human ingenuity or the spirit of what they were telling story-wise, but it made them better. Suddenly those stories became much clearer because of the tools. And to me, it's no different today, whether it be, AI, virtual production. And to me, the gift for the consumer is it's actually putting you more into those stories than you've ever been able to be in before. And to me, that's really exciting because you can now have much more of an immersive experience with your favorite content than you ever had before. So I think inherently, again, technology, it's always kind of scary, but once people start to realize how much better it can make their lives, as well as, how much easier it can make them in terms of the work that they do, it makes a big difference. I think we could go into the future 10,000 years and probably have the same conversation. It is part of human nature. But I think eventually people start to see the good in this stuff as well, not just the bad. And then it's kind of up to us to figure out that balance at that point. Well, I have to give a lot of credit to Mark Lieber, who is our CEO, and he really had the vision back 6 years ago to understand, and he was very involved in virtual reality at that point. And I think he started to realize that really technology and entertainment were coming even quicker together than they ever had throughout history. And we were starting to see a lot of these technology companies starting to be involved a lot with entertainment. I mean, Netflix is a technology company for the most part, but certainly very involved in entertainment. And I think what Mark realized, because like myself, he came from the traditional entertainment route, is that the entertainment executives didn't really know how to talk to the technology executives and vice versa. Very different cultures, very different work styles. And so that was fine when you had industries here and here, but now when you have industries like this, that's where it becomes a little more challenging, essentially. And so Infinity Festival was really created to be that bridge. And really, so much of that business was happening up in Silicon Valley, but that's not where Hollywood is. And, we felt that there was a real opportunity to bring Silicon Valley down to Hollywood. And now a lot of these companies actually have offices here in Playa Vista and different places throughout Los Angeles. But to really bring those two industries together and have very frank conversations about things, and to realize that really the two areas are not all that far apart. And they're there in the service of each other. Great entertainment is made better with great technology, and great technology is even better when you have some entertainment that goes along with it as well. It's not just a bunch of numbers then, and engineering is actually really fun and entertaining. And so I think the industries are finally realizing they kind of need each other, and that was really the vision of Infinity Festival, to bring those two groups together, have those conversations, allow entertainment and technology companies to network together, but then also recognize the work that's being done in the space. And that's what led ultimately to our Monolith Awards, because we wanted to recognize technology companies that were enabling creatives, and we wanted to recognize the creatives that had embraced that technology to make their creative even better.
Where do that? Yep. Got you there. We got to reload.
Oh, no problem. Is this good? Is this what you need?
Fantastic.
Okay, good.
You're fantastic. You're a great speaker.